Get ready.
They say they need to ban the podcast equipment and take y'all mics away. And oftentimes when I listen, shit, I agree.
For real talk.
Hey, man, just because we know people don't mean that they know things. A lot of us was in the same classes with some of these folks. That don't mean they were passing these classes.
All the time.
It ain't the world leaving you behind, man. It's your line of thinking. You think the science stopped evolving because you stopped learning, and it don't work that way. I couldn't imagine voting for somebody who thinks identifying with me is identifying with a felon. That's crazy as hell. I'm Mr. Spann, and I'm approving these messages. This is the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. Let's go. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Spann, and this is episode number 91 of the show. And yeah, man, we getting to it here on a Sunday evening, man. I know I told y'all my sister Cook was going to be here tonight, and my sister Cook may still be here with us tonight. You know, I just got to wait for her to go ahead and hit up that link. You know what I'm saying? And she can come in and she can join in whenever the fuck it is we going on. You know, we got what we got going on. Right? But it's not like she don't know that we got shit going on tonight, right? So my sister Cook may pop up on us. She may not. But all that being said, the show must go on. And so we're going to be going on here tonight with episode 91. But, of course, before we do that, of course, I got to remind you guys how to reach out to your man Spann here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Go ahead, leave me those voicemail messages. Of course, those voicemail messages will get read here and responded to here live here on the show. Also, if you're watching us here live on YouTube and or Facebook, you can go ahead and watch. You can go ahead calling me, and while we're doing the show, hit up that hotline, area code 313-288-0485, and, call in while we're doing the show, man, and chop it up with your man, Spann. We can do this here live on the show, man, real talk. Also, hit us up on our Instagram. Hit me up on my Instagram and Threads. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. I am on Threads quite often now. That is primarily, I am on Threads more than I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, real talk. So if you want to really get at your man's, hit me up on Threads. Also, hit us up on YouTube, or hit us up on YouTube. First of all, when you go to YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, but also like the videos on YouTube and comment on the videos on YouTube. Those comments will be, replied to here live on the show. And also, when you like and subscribe to the channel, it kind of helps, the shit grow on YouTube and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So for those of you who like, consuming the show via YouTube, go ahead, like and subscribe, man. It doesn't cost you nothing to do that, and it does help the show grow, man. So we appreciate you guys for doing that. Also, for those of you who also just like, the audio only aspect of the podcast game, right? Hit us up on Spotify and iTunes with a 5-star review. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get read here live on the show. We really do appreciate you guys for doing that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety. But also, even though you're listening to us via audio, we do have video available on both of those platforms as well. So, you can watch the show. You can just listen to the show. However you consume the show, we got you. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. However you consume the show, we got you. So, I hope you guys appreciate the efforts that we're putting in over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast, man. Real talk. But, yeah, man. Also, before I get finished with this business, go to our store, man. Hit us up on our store. The store link will be in the show notes. Go ahead, copy yourself some merch, man. Go ahead, copy yourself a hat. Go ahead, copy yourself a t-shirt. Go ahead, copy yourself a hoodie. Go ahead, copy yourself a sweatshirt. We got stuff in the store, man. And, it's one way for you to put down for the show, man. That does cost you a little bit, cost you a little bit of money. But we appreciate you guys for doing that. It helps us continue to do what it is that we do here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. Continue to bring these shows here to you. And also, man, if you're going to give us some money, we feel like you should get something back for the money that you give us. So for those of you who would go to our store and patronize us in that way, we really do appreciate you guys, man. Real talk. But yeah, man. So, yeah, it's been a week since the last time I talked to you guys, man. Last week we had our friend Arsenio on the show, man, and shout out to her. Had a very good conversation with her, man. Very knowledgeable sister. enjoyable conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation that I had with Arsenio. We're gonna have that sister on more, straight up. Like I feel like that sister has a voice for podcasting, and she should have her own podcast. And yeah, man, we gotta have that sister back on, man. Real talk. But it's been a week. Like I said, it's been a week since the last time I talked to you guys. And there have been some things that have happened over the course of the weekend that I kind of want to get to. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to get to had to do with the fact that, we talked a little bit about we talked a little bit about some of the Jesse Jackson funeral last week. You know what I mean? Jesse Jackson, of course, you guys know, passed away over the course of the last couple of weeks, and his funeral was last weekend, I believe it was. It's been about a week since Jesse Jackson's funeral has passed on. And one of the things that I didn't really get a chance to talk about last week was the ways in which the media had been kind of framing the discussion around Jesse Jackson's homegoing or funeral, services, and how people were receiving it on not only just like media, mainstream media, right-wing media, left-wing media, but social media as well. How people were receiving the messages that they were getting from the Jesse Jackson funeral. And I thought it was a very interesting thing as I kind of sat back and I watched how people talked about the Jesse Jackson funeral, how people talked about the people who spoke at Jesse Jackson's funeral. And it kind of gave me the ick in a way where I was like, I'm watching shit happen and I'm watching opinions being formed by the algorithm. I'm watching, I swear to God, I feel like I was just watching the algorithm do its thing and people responding to the algorithm, not so much about the messages that were being conveyed at Jesse Jackson's funeral, right? And so one of the things that I really do, I take a little bit of pride in, is that, like, I know that sometimes y'all niggas get frustrated with me when, like, I don't come out with a show as like, right then, right? And I'm bad at, like, sometimes I'll take a month off. Sometimes it'll be a month and a half off. But oftentimes when I'm watching things happen, and it's not just the fact that I'm working and I can't get to the mic as soon as I want to, but also I'm watching things happen and I'm watching how social media is reacting to how those things are happening. And I'm like, yo, niggas are falling for this shit again, right? Niggas are falling for this shit again. And so I've been very cognizant of how messaging happens on social media now, especially since 2016. When we know how like the Russians have been trying to infiltrate not only like the American media sphere, but also how messaging reaches, how ideas and how plots and how we receive these ideas and plots depending on where we lay, how we land socially, how we land politically, and everything else, right? And how I believe that, like, because of that Russian interference into that 2016 election, and I don't believe that shit ever fucking stopped. As a matter of fact, I do believe that not only do the Russians continue to do that shit, but other maybe adversaries to the United States of America are also trying to sow seeds of discord amongst the American people to get us to, like, further separate ourselves from each other so that we don't come together and that we do splinter ourselves from within and they don't have to do a goddamn thing, that they don't have to fire a shot, right? That America will destroy itself from within before the Russians have to do anything, before the Iranians have to do anything, before the Chinese have to do anything. That we have but because of the way that our political apparatus has been kind of molded, so to speak, that we will destroy ourselves from within before an outside adversary has to really do anything, right? And so, as I was watching, as I saw some of the commentary coming out of the Jesse Jackson funeral, I was kind of watching how people were being upset. Folks were upset with how messages were happening at the Jesse Jackson funeral, which is odd to me, right? Because I started noticing like a lot of right-wing pundits were talking about, oh my God, Barack Obama, wrong place, wrong time to be talking politics at Jesse Jackson's funeral. Now, I understand something. The right wing has never been a fan of motherfucking Jesse Jackson. They have never been a fan of Jesse Jackson. White right-wing conservatives have always considered Jesse Jackson a race hustler. They've always considered him that. They have never looked at Jesse Jackson as someone to be leaned upon for any sort of political advice, to be leaned upon for anyone to kind of like assuage the situation. They've always looked at Jesse Jackson as a race hustler. Not only that, there is a contingent of black folk who looked at Jesse Jackson as a race hustler also. I saw it on my timeline all day long. Now you guys, again, I am from Chicago. I was born in Chicago. And so like I will say this to you guys, man. Like if you from Chicago, especially if you from the south side of Chicago, 1,000 goddamn conspiracy theorists. And like the conspiracy theory on the south side of Chicago is like, I don't know what it is to be in New York, but I'm just saying Chicago's conspiracy theorists, them niggas will be on it, right? And so I can remember the conspiracy theory being so thick about Jesse Jackson in Chicago that Common on his it wasn't the Like Water for Chocolate album. I want to say it was the Resurrection album where his dad got on the album and talked about how he wanted to whoop Jesse Jackson's ass, right? Because of something that he had read about Jesse Jackson. That's how prominent some of the animosity towards Jesse Jackson's advocacy, political advocacy, whatever it was that Jesse Jackson was doing, there was a contingent of Chicago motherfuckers that wasn't fucking with Jesse Jackson. Okay? But I'm watching this. I'm noticing how people are talking about Jesse Jackson. And then I'm noticing right-wing media all over social media talking about some of the messaging coming out of Jesse Jackson's funeral. Now, Jesse Jackson's son, Jesse Jackson Jr., comes out and he says that everyone is invited, no matter what your political leaning is. Meaning that Donald Trump, who went out of his way to talk about how much he was friends with Jesse Jackson on True Social, didn't bother to show up to Jesse Jackson's services when they were happening. There was no one from the Trump administration that showed up to Jesse Jackson's services. There was no one who showed up from George W. Bush's administration to speak on behalf of Bush's thoughts on Jesse Jackson. There was no one from the first Bush administration to speak up on how they felt about Jesse Jackson. There was no one from the Reagan administration to come out and speak on how they felt about Jesse Jackson and his advocacy. There was no one to come out there, right? But what we did get Barack Obama. We got Hillary Clinton that showed up there. We got Bill Clinton that showed up there. We got Kamala Harris. She showed up there. We got Isaiah Thomas to kind of acknowledge the women who should have been presidents of the United States but weren't, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. But although the family said The family said that they had no issues with you being, they didn't want it to be like a political thing somewhat. The conservative / Republican folks they didn't send nobody there. They didn't send nobody to speak. They sent nobody to speak. Okay? Now understand something. Jesse Jackson, despite how like the media and the right-wing media would frame this as, the left is taking over Jesse Jackson's funeral, despite the fact that the family didn't want politics being a thing at this funeral, this, that, and the other. Understand something here. Like, Jesse Jackson was a political figure. The idea that there wouldn't be any type of politics spoken at Jesse Jackson's funeral would be naive, to say the least. Right? Naive. But also, if you really felt like you didn't want it to be a partisan thing, then maybe you would have sent somebody to speak on y'all's behalf. And y'all decided not to. But the other thing is that Jesse Jackson Jr.'s words were being weaponized against people like Barack Obama, people like a Bill Clinton, people like a Kamala Harris, by right-wing media. And not just right-wing media, but also motherfuckers like a Stephen A. Smith. And we're going to talk a little bit about him a little later. Right? But one of the issues that I thought was interesting was that there seemed to have been some sort of contrived issue being brought up about President Barack Obama and Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Now, for those of you who don't understand the history, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama used to be members of Trinity United Church in Chicago on the South Side. Reverend Wright was their pastor at the time. But when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, Republicans tried to make Reverend Wright an issue in 2008. And they brought up an old sermon that Reverend Wright gave back in 2008. And in that sermon, Jeremiah Wright is talking about goddamn America. And most of it, if you listen to the context of the sermon concerning black folk and how America had treated black folk, you understand why a Reverend Wright would say goddamn America, because of the way it had treated black folk, right? Now, go back to 2008, and you got to understand, this is Barack Obama. Barack Obama is probably has the most viable chance of becoming the first black president of the United States of America. And Barack Obama, in a political sense, is forced to distance himself from Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Right? Now, there are some in Chicago, there are probably some in the congregation of Trinity United Church in Chicago that have issues with Barack Obama because of the way that he had to separate himself from Reverend Jeremiah Wright, because the way that the Republicans were using Jeremiah Wright as a way to radicalize or make white people scared of the idea of voting for Barack Obama, right? Now, I wasn't at this particular homegoing for Jesse Jackson. But that doesn't mean that I don't know people who were there, right? Now, I try not to do this a lot, but yeah, I have a prominent family in Chicago. If you're in Chicago, my family owns WVON radio, the WVON radio station in the city of Chicago. My uncle Purvis Spann was the person who gave Aretha Franklin the name the Queen of Soul, right? I also have friends who grew up in Chicago, who have influence in Chicago. One of my best friends, man, one of my brothers, is actually he's a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Jesse Jackson was a personal mentor to my friend. Okay. My friend says that Barack Obama and Reverend Jeremiah Wright, when they were around each other doing these particular services, that they had no issues. As a matter of fact, they spoke and they embraced. But the internet had decided that Barack Obama and Reverend Jeremiah Wright had issues with one another because Barack Obama allegedly, not even just allegedly, we're going to play the video, but that there were issues between Barack Obama and Jeremiah Wright because Barack Obama didn't mention Jeremiah Wright during his eulogizing of Jesse Jackson. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video of where Barack Obama was mentioning different clergy in the city of Chicago. And you tell me whether or not you felt offense. Like, because this is the thing. You tell me whether or not you feel offense of how Barack Obama conducted himself in this moment. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann here. Here we go. This is the portion where Barack Obama was talking about him being a new person in Chicago and being kind of going through different churches and everything else, finding his way through the city of Chicago, finding his influences and everything else. Check this out. Let me know. I'm going to play this and you guys let me know what you guys think.
I still credit that first run of Jesse's and Harold Washington's campaign for drawing me to Chicago. And I didn't know anybody when I first arrived. And I was working as a community organizer, as it so happens, in neighborhoods right around here. Roseland, Woodlawn, Alt Gill, West Pullman. And I'm meeting these young preachers like Meeks and some crazy priest named Flager. And and I guess Jenkins was running around, but he's kind of young. He came a little bit later, so I'm going to churches and I'm listening to all these amazing preachers and it was hard work, and half the time I didn't know what I was doing, and progress was slow, and I definitely didn't know how I was going to survive these Chicago winters, because I grew up in Hawaii. But I do remember heading to the Push headquarters some Saturday mornings to listen and learn from Reverend Jackson. And y'all remember how on some mornings, if there was a major issue going on, the room would be packed to the rafters. And sometimes some celebrity just wanders in. And then some mornings it was kind of low-key. Either way, though, the announcements would be made, and Reverend Barrow would say a prayer, and Jesse would sit there, and then finally he'd gather himself up and stand, and he'd start kind of slow, you know. And sometimes he'd talk kind of low, so you couldn't quite catch what he was saying. So everybody lean in. And over time, it was that same boundless energy that would emerge, and that same passion and that same insight. And he'd offer you a master class in economics on a Saturday morning. And he'd give you a seminar in American history and American politics. And he'd make complicated things plain. And he'd tell stories that would make you laugh one minute and cry the next. And whether you were a bus driver or a teacher or a business leader or a young organizer, you came away from those meetings with a better understanding of how the world worked, how power worked. And more importantly, he made you believe that if we came together, we could make the world work better.
So that was the mentioning of the clergy in Chicago that some folk were upset with Obama about because he did not mention Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Now, again, like I said, a friend of mine, really very dear friend of mine, was at these services. Told me that he witnessed Obama and Jeremiah Wright speak and embrace. But that didn't stop folk on social media from being invested in the idea that there was an issue between Reverend Jeremiah Wright and Barack Obama all these years later, right? I was on Threads last week, and I just kind of mentioned, I'm like, man, this is like another example of the internet doing what the internet does, where, you know, there can be, you know, like on social media, there's a conflict, but ultimately between the two people who are supposedly in conflict with one another, there really isn't. It's just this conversation that we're having on the internet because this is what we do on the internet, right? And so there was this one guy who hit me up on Threads, and he was asking me, he was almost damn near interrogating me on who my friend was, for one. And I'm not going to drop my friend's name because it's not important. I just know he was there, and he has no reason to lie to me. Just like I have no reason to lie to you. But he's interrogating me. Like, well, what about Reverend Jeremiah Wright's successor and how he's speaking about Barack Obama, not mentioning Jeremiah Wright, as if it's a foreign idea of someone being upset on behalf of someone else. That even he possibly could be a victim of the vitriol and the conversations that are being had on social media, while also not being cognizant or aware of the relationship that is being had by the two people, the two principals involved. And so as I watched people talk about Jesse Jackson and his flaws, right? I didn't know Jesse Jackson personally. I knew some of the scuttlebutt about Jesse Jackson and how and how he conducted himself personally, right? I knew some of that scuttlebutt. I'm from Chicago. Of course, I heard a lot of that shit. But I also recognize that some of that scuttlebutt, yeah, I don't know how true some of that shit is because I'm getting it through second and third and fourth hand accounts. I don't know how true that shit is. So as I was watching this, I'm just like, I'm amazed at how the conversations around alleged animosities between people that we don't know. That's the other part about this. We don't know these niggas. I keep telling y'all, we do not know these people. Even what I know about Jesse Jackson, second and third hand information. What I know about Al Sharpton, second and third hand information. I don't know these men. I've never interacted with these people. But the internet and these parasocial relationships that we build, even with the people that we do not like, will have us under the idea that we know these people when we absolutely do not. And so one of the things that I thought was very interesting around this particular homegoing service for Jesse Jackson was this wasn't the only fucking story about enmity amongst people, when really it's just the internet doing what the internet does, right? Because it wasn't just this, right? So again, Jesse Jackson Jr. had spoken about how he wanted, he did not necessarily want it to be, politically, a political, what we would call a political display, right? And that all those voices were welcome, whether you were Democrat, Republican, conservative, or liberal, but also understand that a lot of those alleged Republicans and conservatives opted not to even show their faces at this particular event, right? But that did not stop Fox News. That did not stop Newsmax. That did not stop people like Stephen A. Smith and Sean Hannity or whatever else to bemoan and besmirch the character of those who spoke, despite the fact that they too did not necessarily like Jesse Jackson and his politics, right? So much had been made about Jesse Jackson Jr.'s comments about presidents not knowing his dad, right? That they spoke over time, that they had all been given parameters on how they were to conduct themselves at this particular homegoing service, and that they had spoke over their time. Kamala Harris did it. Barack Obama did it. Isaiah Thomas did it. He ain't even a president. He's just a point guard who from the west side of Chicago. He played for the goddamn Detroit Pistons. But he went over his time too. They spoke about that. And the conservatives jumped all over it. But one thing that they did not necessarily highlight was the fact that Jesse Jackson Jr.'s daughter went on Threads and talked about how what her father was talking about had absolutely nothing to do with the presidents who overspoke their time, but it had to do with how the funeral was being kind of conducted, and that the funeral directors were playing music, much like how, say for instance, if you go to the Oscars and you got a speech and your speech is running long, and the Oscars, they start playing music to get you to wrap your shit up, right? They're like, yo, man, wrap this shit up, B. But she was like, nah, what my daddy was talking about was the fact that you had Kamala Harris, you had Barack Obama, Bill Clinton. These people spoke, but when my aunt gets up there to talk about her father, then somehow my aunt is getting played off by the musicians to get her to wrap her shit up. And she's talking about her father. This is her dad, and y'all trying to get her to shut the fuck up. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show this this thread to you guys. So let me go ahead and pull this up so you guys can see right along with your man Spann. But this is from Jesse Jackson Jr.'s daughter, who is Jesse Jackson's granddaughter, and this is her speaking on Threads about how this was being kind of misconstrued in the media and in social media. She said, I don't actually have the capacity right now to keep fighting y'all about my father's comments. Either you watched or attended the services or you didn't. As a family, we are hurting, grieving in our own ways respectively. To come online and see y'all coming for us barely 24 hours after we put our father and grandfather in the ground is bizarre, to say the least. We've been in the front of cameras for 2 weeks. We've hugged and kissed and shook hands and grieved openly wherever we went. I've dried the tears of strangers before tending to my own because we know that this loss is shared. My father, Junior, has been up at 3 a.m. every day since my grandfather's passing. He speaks of my grandfather in the present tense, and up until he was buried, never left the side of my grandfather's casket for more than a moment, even arriving at the funeral home hours before the rest of us. In South Carolina, he spoke at the funeral home. We've hardly had a time to debrief as a family. This has been far from easy. The comment circulating around the presidents is in reference to the fact that during Saturday's service, my auntie Jackie was being played off stage. Each speaker was given 2 to 5 minutes to make remarks. Many went over time because, truthfully, it is hard to encapsulate the breadth of my grandfather's 84 years of life in 2 to 5 minutes. On Friday, each of the presidents spoke for 20 plus minutes, but were not played off stage or forced to end due to resounding amens. They were given their time. My father spoke in defense of my aunt, who has not spoken publicly since she was 16 at the 1984 convention. Little Jackie was the one who took intentional and diligent care of my grandfather up until his final days. From feeding him when he was no longer able to adjusting his to when he was no longer able to adjusting the position of his legs for better circulation. To attempt to play her off was considered highly offensive to our family, period. That was where that came from. It had nothing to do. It had absolutely nothing to do with I take that back. It probably had a little something to do with the fact that, these dignitaries had, went over their time, and people give deference to presidents of the United States, right? But the enmity that was really being had by the family wasn't necessarily aimed at the presidents who spoke about Jesse Jackson and his impact and how he affected policy, but also politics. But it was the fact that here we have a family member speaking on her father, and they were trying to rush her off of the stage. That's where it came from. And so as I watched the internet do what the internet does, I'm looking at it like, yo, man, like we've seen this before, but also when I have people interrogating me about, hey, who is your friend? And why is your friend speaking on behalf of Barack? How does he know? I'm like, well, I don't know, nigga, because he was there. I mean, what the fuck? You want me to interrogate this nigga on whether or not it's true or not because you mad on the internet? Who the fuck are you? And who the fuck are you for me to lie about it? I don't know you, nigga. Nigga, I don't know you. Just like that family doesn't know you. Chances are Reverend Wright's family don't know you neither. But it's just weird. We're in a weird space on social media, in media, where animosity can be ginned up on little to nothing. And we can be more upset on behalf of someone than the person who the offense actually supposedly happened to. And sometimes I just kind of want us to take a step back. Like, hey, man, this ain't necessarily what we think it is. We might want to like kind of pump our brakes on this for a minute. But we might want to like kind of chill. And oftentimes I think because of how social media moves and how like, it like everything moves at the speed of fucking light, man. Like the light moves across the world before the truth is putting on his fucking shoes. To the point where Jesse Jackson's granddaughter, speaking on this fact, got very little coverage in social media. Also got very little coverage in the media as a whole. But her clarifications about what was happening and when and why, people ain't talking about that. They'd much rather be encompassed in the idea of these big figures having beef with one another and then having to choose between whose side they're going to be on. It's weird. It's weird. But as we come up on another election, it also worries me. It worries me because the misinformation and the disinformation ever since 2016, it has not dissipated. It has just got more sophisticated. And unfortunately, too many of us are way too willing to kind of fall for it, you know? And so that bothers me, man. That bothers me. It really does. So we got that going on. Another thing that we got going on while we're talking about the Jesse Jackson funeral was the fact that Stephen A. Smith had something to say about Kamala Harris and her comments during the Jesse Jackson homegoing ceremonies and whatnot. And so I know I told you guys I wouldn't be talking about Stephen A. Smith much anymore on the show, but like I could not just let this shit slide. I couldn't let this shit slide, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up so you guys can watch right along with your man Spann. But excuse me, this is Stephen A. Smith talking on his show, his straight shooter, I guess. That's what the fuck he's calling it. But this is him speaking on it, and let's just hear what this motherfucker had to say, man. Check this out.
That we didn't support her. Nearly 75 million people voted. In our face one more time talking about.
I'm sorry, I gotta rewind this.
I am going to tell y'all right now, I'm on the verge one of these days real soon of blowing a gasket. If I see that lady, figuratively speaking, in our face one more time talking about she told us so, it's pissing me off.
Now, understand something. I want to understand something. Why would Kamala Harris saying she told you so piss you off? Because it wasn't like she didn't, right? It wasn't like she didn't. She told a lot of this stuff she kind of highlighted during her campaign and prior to her campaign that Donald Trump is doing and plans to do, right? Why would you be upset at someone saying that? Unless, of course, you've positioned yourself for saying you regret voting for someone like Kamala Harris. Stephen A. Smith is going on record to say he regrets that he voted for her at all. So why would you be upset? I mean, of course, unless, of course, you regret your vote, right?
Because it's implying that we didn't support her. Nearly 75 million people voted for her.
And you say you regret that you voted for her. You say you regret your support of her. Right? Why would you be upset about this? She ain't talking about you, nigga, if you really supported her. Is this another case of hit dogs hollering? Right? Hey, you did not support her wholeheartedly, and so because you trying to be chummy with these Trump motherfuckers, because you're trying to be chummy with these some bitches, suddenly being told that, like, yeah, I tried to tell you niggas this was what was gonna happen. Now that makes you feel away because you're trying to be good, you trying to be cool with them. Make that make sense, nigga.
You had a 107-day campaign. 75 million people almost showed up to vote for you. You had $1.5 billion to spend. We supported you. Why are you sitting at a memorial service in a church with none but black people around you talking to us about you told us so, like we didn't support you?
Now, understand, here's the other part, right? She said this at a black church with black people, and the attitude in the room was pretty much supportive. The attitude in the room was supportive. But not this attitude here, man. So the black people that she talking to ain't mad at what she's saying. They're like, we tried to tell them. Meanwhile, here go your coon looking at your coon boot looking ass talking about, why would you say this into a room full of black people? The black people know that they're like, nah, she ain't talking to us. She knows. Y'all know that this message isn't necessarily just for the motherfuckers in the room. You weren't there. So it was to your punk ass too. It was to your punk ass too. You weren't in the room. You know this message isn't just for those folks in the room. So why are you so goddamn worked up? You bitch-made, fool-ass punk motherfucker.
Voted for her. Most black folks voted for her. What are you talking about? We supported you when you didn't necessarily earn our support. You didn't go through a primary. You didn't scallivant around the country.
She didn't go through a primary. Understand something. There was a primary. The primary had Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. Because Joe Biden was running unopposed, Joe Biden pretty much won that primary by default. She was on that ticket. So any vote for Joe Biden as his vice president was a vote for her. She went through a primary. Whether or not you like the primary that she went through is an entirely different discussion. But the idea that there was no primary on the Democratic side is it's a falsehood. Let's just say that. It's a falsehood.
Country earning our vote, knocking door to door. You didn't do that. You bypassed the primary.
Also, if you're going to come at Kamala Harris for allegedly bypassing a primary, why don't we have that same level of smoke for Donald Trump, who, while there was a Republican primary going on, did not participate in not a single fucking Republican debate. Not a single one. Donald Trump did not participate in a single Republican debate to tell people why they should be voting for him, to give his policy positions on anything. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump said, I don't have to do none of that shit. But somehow, some way, you got more smoke for Kamala Harris and the primary for the Democratic Party than Donald Trump opting not to even participate in the shit at all. Make that make sense to anybody. You bitch-made, fool-ass, bad hairline having punk.
You were handed the presidential nomination for the Democratic Party.
And Donald Trump wasn't?
Once Biden stepped down. You had some people in the Democratic Party laughing about the fact that, you know what? We're glad that Biden stepped down when he did, because had he stepped away earlier, there would have been a primary. She wouldn't have been a Democratic nominee for the presidency. And after that, you know what? She wouldn't have had that opportunity. It wasn't us that went on The View. And when you were asked, is there anything different that you would do compared to what Biden did? I really can't think of anything. We didn't do that. You did. And we voted for you anyway. We told you to be aggressive, to stop being so damn loyal to Joe Biden.
Why? Why not be loyal to Joe Biden? Understand something here for a second. Let's keep it a buck. Some of the best domestic policy that this country has seen in the better part of the last 20 years as a result of Joe Biden's presidency. Whether you're talking about the infrastructure bill, whether you talk about the Chips and Science Act, whether you're talking about and much of this stuff is things that we didn't think that Joe Biden would be able to get through bipartisanly. As a matter of fact, there was a bipartisan I'm sorry, not the infrastructure bill, but a bipartisan immigration bill that was working its way through Congress, and Donald Trump himself told Republicans not to vote for that because he needs that particular issue for his presidential campaign. So the problem could have been fixed, but Donald Trump needed y'all to have that be a problem so that he can continue his presidential campaign. Make that make sense, man. Make that makes sense. And like I said, Stephen A. Smith has gone on record to say that he is regretful of his support of Kamala Harris. So it's no surprise to many of us who've listened to this nigga when he comes out and he says, she shouldn't have been saying this at Jesse Jackson's funeral, because again, this is what the right wing is saying, that these political messages shouldn't be coming from Jesse Jackson's funeral. Meanwhile, they couldn't just show up and show respects. They couldn't allow Jesse Jackson's body to lie in state at the Capitol. They couldn't lower the flags at half staff on behalf of, the nation for Jesse Jackson's work and his work with the civil rights movement and what he meant to Black Americans. Couldn't do that. Couldn't do that. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith is on his bitch ass podcast talking about how much he talking about this weed shit. You the only nigga that on this weed shit that talking about you regret your support and going out of your way to be on Republican and right-wing outlets to say so, that you regret your support of this woman. So make it make sense to us, Stephen.
To making sure that you assuaged his concerns, and as a result, you were conducting yourself in a fashion that was non-offensive to him, more so than prioritizing getting as many votes as you possibly could to win the presidency, and you could thank him and you could take care of him later. We were telling you that. We were telling you to be more aggressive. We were telling you to be more assertive. We were telling you to remind people of your record.
Meanwhile, Kamala Harris was actually out here trying to her own detriment. This is the part that this is the one criticism that I have of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is out here trying to reach out to those Trump voters, to those disaffected white Americans who were being disenfranchised by this current administration, who were not necessarily being served by a Republican regime, who are now having their Medicaid shit cut, their health care cut. You got people out here right now mad than a motherfucker about, hey, these gas prices are going up, and Trump told us he wasn't going to be involving us in any regime change wars, and I'll be goddamn, this motherfucker isn't doing that. Black women have had some of the biggest unemployment numbers in a generation because of Doge. And we've seen, and we probably talk about that on another episode. I'll probably talk about that sometime later this week, about some of the Doge guys who were just arbitrarily getting rid of programs that they thought was DEI because it spoke about Black people, because it spoke about women, because it spoke about Jewish people, because it spoke about marginalized groups in any fucking capacity. And they were getting rid of those programs, and they were getting rid of those grants. Meanwhile, people are losing jobs all over the motherfucking country as a result. But you got all this smoke for Kamala Harris. Nigga.
You were an attorney general. You were a senator. You were the reigning vice president of the United States. You had the credential. What were you being passive for? You didn't want to be disloyal. You didn't want to come across as being disloyal. But we found out in your book, after you lost the election. You didn't tell us all of that beforehand. You wasn't aggressive beforehand. You didn't push the envelope beforehand. Black folks still supported you. Why you keep standing in our face talking about you told us so?
So here's the thing. I think this is the thing that Stephen A. Smith is missing, is that he believes that the Black folks in that room are upset with Kamala Harris because she's like, I tried to tell motherfuckers. And the Black folks in that room are like, yeah, she tried to tell you motherfuckers. But he's missing the idea that because this isn't just confined to those people in that room, that this messaging is going to be on all the news. It's going to go across the nation. that there are going to be some people who are going to be watching this who did not vote for a Kamala Harris, who did vote for a Donald Trump, who did not heed the messaging that Kamala Harris was trying to put forth to the American people, who are now going to be like, I mean, shit, damn, she got a point. She got a point, man. Fuck. This is the shit that Stephen A. Smith is missing. The black folks in that room ain't mad at her. Just your bitch ass. Just you. And the motherfuckers who voted for that piece of shit, who had people who had, also understand this, bro. The Trump administration actually did have people go onto the south side of Chicago and raid an apartment building at 3 o'clock in the motherfucking morning and snatch black folks up out of their apartments in search of alleged Venezuelan gang members, and zip tied those people's kids and put guns in those people's faces on the south side of Chicago. So I'm sorry, you Hollis Queens motherfucker, if you can't relate to the people in that room possibly having a relative who could have been in that building on the south side of Chicago, who had their kids pulled out of that apartment building in the middle of the night looking for alleged Venezuelan gang members. I'm sorry if you can't relate. But Kamala Harris is speaking to a room of people like, yeah, she tried to tell you motherfuckers. And as a result of y'all not listening, some of you and the people who are not in that room who did not listen, as a result of that, we had people on the south side of Chicago having their rights violated. Fuck you, nigga. Fuck you. From the bottom of my balls, fuck you.
Like somehow, some way we went against you and we didn't believe you and we didn't support you. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. In some cases, against our better judgment, we still supported you. I say all of that because I'm sick and tired of us walking around passive and absorbing and stomaching this stuff that is flat out untrue.
Wait, I want to hear what this motherfucker says that she said was untrue.
Black folks voted for Kamala Harris.
No shit.
Supported Kamala Harris. You didn't have to say you told us so. We knew, we still know. And we supported you. You yourself.
Out of those black folks who supported her, you are one who's on the record. You are one who's on the record of saying that you regret your support of her. Fuck you.
I've had to admit that you didn't campaign accurately or the right way. You keep leaning on 107 days that you had. You keep leaning on the fact that you were at a disadvantage. You still had $1.5 billion. You still beat Trump on a debate stage when you went up against him. You yourself said that you had more voters come out to vote for the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States in America than anyone in history. Why do you keep saying you told us so?
Clearly, she's not talking to us. Let's not be stupid. Clearly, she's not talking to us. She's talking to them. Why is this nigga? Here's why this bothers me. This is a nigga who's a 100 millionaire, who is a part of the mainstream media apparatus, who gets on TV every day. And not only is he talking sports, but now these motherfuckers are allowing this nigga to talk about politics. And he acts as though he doesn't know what the fuck the game is. And this is my problem with him. Nigga, you know why she's saying this shit. You know why she's saying it. Why are you acting stupid, Stephen A? Why are you acting like you don't know what the fuck is going on, Stephen A? Did they pay you $100 million to act like you don't know what the fuck is going on? Is that a clause in a contract somewhere where you got to act like a complete bumbling fucking fool where you don't know? Hey, we'll allow you to talk about politics, but you got to be a bumbling fool while you're doing this shit? Is that a stipulation? Is that something that they put in the contract to allow you to have these bullshit, fuck ass, punk ass points where you act as though you don't know how media works, nigga? Really? This is the problem that I have with people like Stephen A. I am a fucking pipe fitter by trade. I work with pipe and pipe wrenches every day. I'm a college educated nigga, but I work with pipes every day. And somehow I know how this shit works, but Stephen A., the journalist, who was a journalist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, he'll let us know that, who was on Fox Sports and ESPN, all this shit, he'll let us know that. But somehow, some way, he acts motherfucking dumb. Motherfucking dumb when it comes to how the media works. You know goddamn well Kamala Harris is speaking to the folks who are outside that room, who did not support her, who also have a problem with the way that this motherfucking administration is operating right now. You can't be this stupid. You cannot be this stupid. You fool-ass bitch-made punk.
Very annoying. It's not fair to us who supported you. It's not. And then we find out how candid and in your face and unapologetic you could be when it's time to sell your book, but not when you're running for the presidency. Come on now. We've been supporting you. We've been spewing your credentials. When they tried to...
Not you. Not you. You said that you regret your vote for her. You're on the record as doing that. So cut the shit.
Minimize you, your intellect, your accomplishments, or anything in between. We jumped up and defended you. Why are you telling us? I told you so. Like we did you wrong. We did not. What you gonna tell Jesse Jackson Jr.? He asked y'all not to engage in the politics, right? Y'all think I'm just saying that? Listen to Jesse Jackson Jr. speak after the former president, along with former President Joe Biden, along with former Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States, Kamala Harris. After they spoke, listen to Jesse Jackson Jr. speak about them.
We gonna listen.
Yesterday, I listened for several hours of 3 United States presidents who do not know Jesse Jackson. He maintained a tense relationship with the political order, not because the presidents were white or black, but the demands of our message, the demands of speaking for the least of these, those who were disinherited, the damned, the dispossessed, the disrespected, demanded not Democratic or Republican solutions, but demanded a consistent, prophetic voice that at no point in time ever sold us out as a people. And it speaks volumes about who the Reverend Jesse Jackson was.
They could have easily leaned on that message from Jesse Jackson Jr. to make their points.
But of course, as we've already read from Jesse Jackson Jr.'s own daughter, that his contention wasn't about their messaging, so to speak, that it was about how they tried to disrespect Jesse Jackson's daughter in speaking about her father. So as I said to you guys before, this wasn't necessarily about there being animosities and there being beefs and whatever between the family. Because think about this for a second. Do you think that the family didn't see the remarks of Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, and Bill Clinton before that particular service? Do you think that they did not see what that was about? Do you think? Do you think that they did not know what was to come from the speeches that those particular individuals would have to say in front of the public on behalf of their father? Do you think that that they were unaware of that? See, the thing is, people like Stephen A. and people like the right-wing media apparatus, they depend upon the idea of the rest of us being media illiterate. That we don't know how the media works. That we don't know how messaging works. And so it's been interesting to see how the right wing has been trying to use Jesse Jackson Jr.'s remarks as a condemnation of Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, and Bill Clinton, while at the same time knowing that they did not necessarily support the politics of a Reverend Jesse Jackson, who spoke about equality and spoke about DEI and who spoke about equal opportunities for all, right? Stephen A. Smith at this particular moment has allowed himself to become a messenger of right-wing bullshit. This is what Stephen A. Smith is doing right at this very moment. Because he can't actually negate anything that Barack Obama said, that Kamala Harris said, that Bill Clinton said. His beef is, hey, why are you saying it to us? We was the ones that supported you. As if he doesn't know that the messaging goes beyond the people in the room and the people who are actually not necessarily fans of Jesse Jackson, but they were going to watch that service. Let's keep it a buck. Everybody who watched Jesse Jackson's funeral wasn't necessarily a fan of Jesse Jackson. They were not. But they were going to get something from it. And so for Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and Kamala Harris to speak directly to those people, to say, we tried to tell you, y'all weren't listening to us. maybe it reaches some of them. But for someone like a Stephen A. Smith, who is going out of his fucking way to tell y'all, I regret that I voted for Kamala Harris, as he tries to cloak it as, we were supporting you. Like, nigga, obviously the message wasn't for you. And as a journalist, you should know that the message was not for you. So, yeah, man, we got that going on, man. I do not. I swear to God, man, I do not want to talk about this motherfucker ever again. I swear to God, I don't. But this one right here, I could not let it slide. I couldn't let it slide, man. I just couldn't. So, yeah, man. Yeah, we got that. We got that going on, man. Another story that we got going on, man. So apparently in Kansas, they are revoking the driver's licenses of 1,700 transgender residents, y'all. What the fuck, man? Yeah, man, they are trying to get rid of. I don't exactly know what the fuck Kansas is really trying to do. Like it doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense. But we're gonna pull the story up. I got this story here from this comes from NBCnews.com. Is there a video attached to this? Let me make sure that there isn't. So that okay. Yeah, so there isn't a video attached to this. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this story here. Let me go ahead and pull this down because this no longer applies. But yeah, man. So Kansas has decided they want to revoke the driver's licenses of 17,000 transgender residents. It says some 1,700 Kansans have had their driver's licenses invalidated last month. It wasn't for racking up speeding tickets or a DUI charge, but because they are transgender. Kansas is one of 5 states to prohibit trans people from changing the gender marker on their licenses, but it is the first to pass a law that retroactively cancels licenses that were already changed. The law also invalidated birth certificates for those who updated their gender markers. Hundreds of trans drivers already received letters from the state informing them that their documents were invalid immediately and that they may be subject to additional penalties if they continue to drive unless they surrender the license to the Kansas Division of Vehicles and receive a new one with their birth sex. I'm pretty heartbroken, said Jalen Abeck, a 41-year-old trans woman living in Wichita, who received the letter. She says she will not turn in her license and plans to move this month to another state. It is a continuation of the message that the legislature has been sending out for years now, and that is that transgender people are not welcome in Kansas. 2 anonymous trans residents sued Kansas last month, arguing that the law violates state protections for personal autonomy, privacy, equity, and due process and freedom of speech. On Tuesday, Douglas County District Judge James Macabria declined to grant a temporary restraining order against the law while the case proceeds. Macabria wrote in his decision that there isn't enough evidence to show that trans people will face harassment and discrimination if they have to use the bathrooms or show IDs that conflict with their gender identities. Now, here's the thing that I think is very interesting, right? We've talked about this here on the show quite a bit. For the better part of the last 5 or 6, probably maybe even the last 10 years, man, there has been a Republican push to delegitimize the identity of someone being trans, right? And it's not just been in the last 10 years, man. I swear. Like I remember there being a thing in North Carolina where they lost, like they lost the NCAA like basketball tournaments and shit because they were like pulling some bullshit about like bathroom laws and shit. And even in Georgia, I believe there was something that happened in Georgia where they lost the MLB All-Star game behind this bullshit. But the idea that Kansas is now revoking the driver's licenses of people who identify as trans, it's a bunch of bullshit. And here's why. Now, when they were acting as though they gave a goddamn, because it's all an act. When they were acting as though they gave a goddamn about transgender people participating in women's sports, they had the idea of, we're trying to protect the integrity of women's sports. When it came to the idea of they were trying to keep trans people out of women's bathrooms, it was because they had this bullshit idea that they were trying to keep trans people and protect the girls from trans folks in the bathroom. But when it comes to the state of Kansas deciding that they don't want trans people to have a driver's license that actually identifies them as how they identify, who the fuck are you protecting there? Who the fuck are you protecting there? How are you protecting anybody with this? How are you keeping people safe from keeping trans people from being able to legally drive a fucking car, bruh? And this lets you know that it had absolutely nothing to do with them protecting cisgendered women from anything. This has always been about Republicans trying to determine who is a woman and who isn't, right? Or better yet, Republicans deciding who gets to determine who and how someone identifies. Now, I'm old enough to remember, well, Republicans were supposedly the people who did not want the government in our daily lives. I'm old enough to remember where the Republicans were supposedly the ones who were like, no, we want people to be able to live their lives and the government doesn't impede upon them being who they are and how they live. Right? I'm 45. I'm old enough to remember. That's how the Republican Party used to roll. Suddenly, the Republican Party has allowed themselves, or better yet, not even allowed themselves. The Republican Party has leaned into this idea of, hey, we can weaponize this marginalized group, however small they may be, and get people to think that this small, marginalized group somehow is a danger to the populace at large. And if we can get people to believe that this marginalized group is a danger to the populace at large, then we can somehow win elections because most people don't even know someone who's trans. Most people don't know some people they've never even encountered this. They've never encountered it in their fucking life. Right? I ask people all the time, man, like, yo, real talk. As much as people talk about trans people being in the bathrooms and whatever else, man, like, how often have you seen it happen? And like low key, they don't really know. They've never seen it. As a matter of fact, that's pretty much the answer I get. It's crickets. Because they don't fucking know. Also, let's keep it in a buck. Let's keep it a buck. When it comes to women's sports. You mean to tell me the same guys who tell you that they don't watch the WNBA because the WNBA isn't as good as the NBA? You mean to tell me that you believe that those guys give a fuck about the genetic or the gender authenticity of the people who are participating in the sport? You mean to tell me you really believe them? They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They've never cared about women's sports. They were pretending they do, but they don't. They've never cared about women. As a matter of fact, the same people who will tell you that they give a fuck about women's sports, the same ones go out of their way to tell you that they don't watch the WNBA. They go out of their way to say it. They don't believe in this shit. They don't care. They don't care. In much the same way that Republicans don't care about the political messages coming out of Jesse Jackson's funeral, man.
That'll be a monkey's bare-assed uncle.
They don't care, man. And so I think it's very interesting. That Kansas, despite the fact that this has nothing to do with the bathrooms, has nothing to do with the sports. This is just everyday living your life. In somehow, some way, a trans person having a driver's license is a motherfucking problem. It doesn't make sense. And it's some of the stupidest shit that has ever come out of a goddamn state legislature. So we got that going on, man. Real talk. But yeah, man, I was gonna talk about, Turning Point USA, like focusing on the high school kids, but y'all know Turning Point USA is some bullshit. So I'm not gonna even fuck with that. We got some other things that are going on. But of course, I'm gonna get on up out of here. But of course, before we get up out of here, I gotta remind you guys how to get attention to your man Spann, so you can chop it up with your man Spann. Let everybody know why you chopping up with your man Spann, but also how to do that. But also, so here's how you do that. Go ahead and hit up the hotline, area code 313-288-0485. Go ahead and hit up that hotline, area code 313-288-0485. Leave me those voicemails. Those voicemails will get right here live on the show and respond to it kind. You can also follow me on Threads and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead and follow me there. Chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. You can also follow me on subscribe to the channel on YouTube, man. Go to the Spann Report Podcast Network on YouTube, man. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment on the videos. We really appreciate everybody who does that. It doesn't cost you guys a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with your man Spann here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety. Also, Spotify and iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that we get right here live on the show. We really do appreciate everybody who does that. Doesn't cost you a dime. Just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Miss Spann Official Podcast, and also the Spann Report Podcast Network in its entirety. And also, copy yourself some merch, man. We got some merch over in our stores. The link will be in the show notes. Copy yourself some merch. Those of you who do that, we really appreciate you guys. We really do appreciate you guys to do that. And we really appreciate you doing that because you guys are the ones who help us keep this shit going. Right? But you get something back. You get something back. You get a hat, you get a t-shirt, you get a coffee mug or whatever. And we appreciate you guys for supporting us in that way, man. In that way, man. Real talk. But yeah, man, I gotta get on up out of here. I will talk to you guys again soon. But until next time, fam. Peace.